Welcome again to another Colors of Prog. This is Season 3, Episode 14, Van de Graaf Generator, the early years. As clever as I can get to call the thing. And in discussing about 5 albums by this band, the space thing behind me, we're floating in space, is prescient. They're a very strange band. Van de Graaf Generator, or VDGG for short, were named after a scientific device for accumulating high vintage bolts of electricity. And as like that oddly chosen name, they have become a band that straddles the very edge of progressive music. Actually, I call them art rock. But that term didn't exist back then when they released their first few albums. So, oddly settling chaotic music formed around juxtaposing chordal structures and featuring a lead singer, Peter Hamel, who has an impressive range in his voice, from near ballad-like warmth to caterwauling, purely listenable to some atonal bellows. It's not a band for everyone. To put it charitably, they're among rock music's original avant-garde bands, for sure. There's a lot of people out there who are probably thinking, so I'm not familiar with Van de Graaf Generator. I've heard the name, and I don't know. Arthur Brown. Think Arthur Brown. Think, as far as singers go, think the lead singer from Area, the Italian band. Hamel's highly regarded as a songwriter and singer, and Van de Graaf Generators highly regarded as to those who really love them as a very interesting band musically and the like. They formed in Manchester, England in 1967. You're going to see where I'm going with this. They were quickly signed to the UK-based Charisma label, and I just mentioned Charisma earlier. In the early days of British-based progressive rock music, so many bands are being signed by Charisma. The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other from 1970 is actually their second album. Their first album was 1969's Aerosol Gray Machine, which sounds a whole lot different from the band from 1970 onward. So the least we could do is like each other. Is this one? The core band here is Peter Hamel on vocals, David Jackson on saxophones, flutes, and keyboards, Hugh Banton on keyboards, Nick Potter on bass and guitar, and Guy Evans on percussion. Very different from the symphonic progressive sound of the time. This was dark, occasionally brooding music. Hell, they even titled the first track Darkness. No doubt they were talented. But what was this at the time? Even personally, I thought Captain Beefheart was more approachable, and that's saying a lot. And the early Captain Beefheart music released by the Frank Zappa label back in the day was quite something. The songs are long, so they're proggish in that manner, but it's a listen. H to He Who Am the Only One is anarchic musically, and is anarchic as the album that preceded it. But oddly enough, my question was, why do the vocals and words have to be so solemn and dark? And gloomy. The second and third King Crimson albums also explored similar territory. Robert Fripp guests on electric guitar on the 9-minute The Emperor in His War Room. There you go. There's your King Crimson connection. If I had to choose, I'd say it's one of the better VDGG GG albums for newcomers. You know, if somebody said, well, I don't like angry music and I'm not big into art rock, I kind of like more pleasant sounds, I'd recommend H2 He Who Am the Only One, because it's different. It's not symphonic rock, but there are elements, symphonic prog I meant, but there are elements of that sound in here. So probably my favorite, among my favorites of the Van de Graaf Generator albums, is Pawn Hearts. Pawn Hearts. Delves deep into themes of alienation and despair. There we go again. It only features 3 tracks: the 12-minute Lemmings, the 11-minute Man Erg, that's man-erg, or Man Energy, I don't know, and 23-minute Plague of the Lighthouse Keepers. That would be a great movie, wouldn't it? Watch out for the Plague of the Lighthouse Keepers. And that itself, the 23-minute song, is broken up in a 10-minute into 2 10-minute mini sections. Like, it's broken up into 10 mini sections. Sorry about that. So 23-minute Plague of Lighthouse Keepers. This is tough. It's broken up into 10 mini sections, like a rock opera of sorts. Although musically little has changed since the previous album, for some reason Pawn Hearts considered a favorite by many, and I do like it, would certainly be recommended as a place by me to start as well. Be forewarned, it is a bit as avant-garde as described and challenging for the uninitiated, but there's something welcoming about this too. Like many progressive bands, who are writing and performing original, challenging, unusual music, I'm sure this was a tough sell. I'm sure this was a tough sell back then as much as it is today. And it wasn't until post-punk, there was a musical form called no wave. And this is, new wave was a different thing. The Romantics and New Romantics and very hummable synth-heavy bands. And the no wave was more at times atonal and at times not, and at times rhythmic and at times not. It was a very odd structure, non-structure, and I think that was the whole idea of that post-punk thing. Where do you take it post-punk? Just tear everything apart. Possibly the thing with Van de Graaf Generator was they wanted to tear things down and rebuild and just create this new form of music. After a 2-year break, the band returned with GodBluff. Very curious black cover, although the back cover, yay, this was 1975, spreading 4 long songs out over the album. They're as original as ever, and they continue that mellow, angry, calm, insanely angry tone in every song. And it can be, as I said before with the others, it can be a bit much to the unfamiliar. And for those familiar with the sound and enjoy it, it's a favorite. Personally, it's okay, but not up to Pawn Hearts and H2 He Who Am the Only One. Peter Hammill, okay, I mentioned a few minutes ago, his range and his vocal abilities, which are extraordinary. But the thing is, so what I'm trying to get across to you, if you heard them, you notice. If you like them, then you're going to move on. Like, I don't want to hear it. But if you're not aware of it and you're uninitiated to their sound, imagine this is this really long song, and in the context of the 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 13 minutes of the song, the music and the singing goes from like this not easy listening, but from like this mellow kind of thing, and then it goes harsh, and it's like all these different emotions are going through. People dig it for that. There are all these different emotions just being slammed out there, and It's very original. You cannot say it's not. Concurrently, Peter Hamill started a solo career and working with other people around this period, 75 all the way up till now. And he would join some alternative rock labels or as an artist and released some really interesting, less confrontational music in the early 80s. And I think he might have been on Relativity or one of those labels. And I was had my own magazine at the time, 82 to 84 period. And they contacted me. They always send me vinyl CDs, picture discs, all the cassettes. Yeah, they were cassettes at the time. Cassette, that thing you put in a cassette player. And cassette tape. And they said, we're pushing out this new Peter Hamill album. Would you like to interview him? And he was on tour at the time. He was in the Midwest, and they said, we're going to set up his in a bar. So I did interview him, and I got to talk about Van de Graaf Generator, and he's a very mellow guy. And the album, I forgot it was at the time. Eventually, over the course of time, I'll talk about some of his solo music, which I kind of like a little bit more than the Van de Graaf stuff. Because in a way, he was he aged well. So he was very handsome at this time. He was like the anti-Peter Gabriel. We all know Peter Gabriel from Genesis, and he's having these big hits around that time, Sledgehammer and Salisbury Hill and Biko. Strangest hits, but they were hits. And Peter Hamill kind of toned back a lot of that anti stuff, and was kind of putting forth a little different thing there. And then so, but after that, he became, his own self and just wanted to do his thing his way, and reformed multiple times over the years. Van de Graaf Generator. Still Life. I want to speak of that one. Yes. And here's the back. Still with the long songs. It's only 5 tracks, mind you. And, we got 13 minutes, 10 minutes, 7 minutes. Still Life from 76 is said to contain songs recorded during the GodBluff sessions and for whatever reason, did not make that album. It's much more calmer, more pensive in parts. And probably like Pulling Hearts, I would recommend Still Life. And the band would break up. The last recorded together in 1977. Then they reunited in 2005 for Present. But then David Jackson was no longer in the band. And they did 4 albums, including 2016's Do Not Disturb. And it comes close to the keyboard-dominated sound of the anarchic early Van de Graaf Generator years, as well as becoming a bit proggy. So I always found that Do Not Disturb from 2016 wound up sounding more symphonic prog, for lack of a better word, than the music they used to make. And almost they were coming full circle. They used to rebel against this music, and then they're making music like this. Very interesting. And David Jackson's phenomenal multi-instrumentalist, and he's joined other bands as a guest player, and he's really terrific, saxophones, flutes, etc. And international bands as well. He's recorded with Japanese, Italian, guested in festivals and the like. So really, really cool stuff. So that Van de Graaff generator, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth albums. Because I thought the first one was just like a little bit out of the entire realm of what we're doing here. And so, yeah, take from what you want. I did recommend H to He, who am the only one. There's a lot of fans of that out there. Pawn Hearts, and Pawn Hearts is one of my favorites. And the others all have really good music. It's really good music. It's challenging, as I said before, and we don't always want something that's not challenging, right? So that's Van de Graaff generator, the early years. Have a great day.